Okay, so this is a pretty easy one. We're learning how to use adjustment layers, and this particular one uses the levels adjustment layer. There's a written set of instructions for these exercises, so for 15 through 17, you can just follow them. And here it tells us, to open the files, and then we're just going to select the levels adjustment layer. So here's how you do it. We're gonna put the levels adjustment layer on exercise 15, and we're gonna use it to try to make our photo look like the right portion of the Scooter Final example. So we're not trying to make it look two-tone like that sample. The whole thing will look light like the right side. All right, so an adjustment layer is put onto a layer simply by going to the little circle that's half black, half white down at the bottom of your layer panel. And from there, choose levels. Now, there's an adjustment panel, and I'm going to reset my window because it's kind of messy. So if I reset Essentials, adjustment is right here. If you find that yours is closed for any reason, you can open it, and you can open any panel, by the way, by going to Window and just choosing it. So just click it and click Adjustments, and it'll open it. Also, if your desktop's all messy and you want to straighten it out, the really fast way, remember, is just go to Workspace and reset it, or choose a different one if you want to change that. Okay, so once you have your levels,
How do we get there?
okay, so once you have that level set, you're going to be adjusting the upper little slider bars, not the lower ones. And you're basically going to be moving mostly the white slider and the gray. The white slider makes the photo brighter and lighter. The gray slider makes the contrast higher or lower, and the black slider makes the photograph darker. So we definitely want more lightness on our image. And then we want to adjust the contrast too. Our purpose while doing it is not to blow out the light values. And if you apply contrast too heavily, you can end up losing too much detail. And I'm going to do that on purpose. See how this is kind of blown out now on that scooter, where you don't really see the detail that you see on this one. It's because I'm just applying too heavy of a hand here. So I'm going to lighten that up, and my goal on it is to kind of get it the same shade of gray as what I had before. And I actually kind of messed it up by doing that, by showing the wrong way. So I'll back up a little. You can also look at the sidewalk and kind of get a sense of, is my sidewalk the same lightness as the other sidewalk? And do find, some little fine tuning by sliding these back and forth. Once you think you're pretty close, then save it. Last name, first name, EX15 for this one. Be sure when you save it that the where you're saving it to is not the handout folder. You're going to want to pick desktop. The next one is exercise 16, and that's called bus. And then the final one is bus final. And you might want to shrink down your sample a little bit, maybe Command minus, so it gets a little smaller, so that you have room to see both. And the instructions for it are here. So looking at them, it asks you to use levels, and then it asks you to do a color balance adjustment layer, and then it asks you to do a hue saturation adjustment layer. So this one, to get the point, you have to have used 3 different adjustment layers, not just one. Because we're not only going to change light and dark and contrast, we're also going to change color tone. So first thing you're going to do is add that levels adjustment layer. And what you're going for is obviously, you know, the light and dark. It's not the color. So we're not looking so much to make it change color to be accurate. We're just trying to get the shadows to be about the same level of darkness. So that kind of helps me to think of it that way. So you're going to start out, be sure you grab this one up here too. I just grabbed the wrong slider. Don't grab the bottom slider. You need the top one. So I'm going to start sliding that white slider over, looking at my sample as I go. Kind of helps to look at the ground in front of the bus too. How much detail can you see? And then we're also going to adjust the slider bar for contrast. And, you know, just kind of get as close as you can. If you think you're a little slightly off, it's okay, because you can come back at any point and readjust any of these adjustment layers. So the next adjustment layer is going to be our color balance, and we're going to go for a vintage feel. So we're going to be adding some red and some yellow to the picture. So for that one, go to adjustments again, the little icon, and choose color balance. And then from there, with your slider, you're going to add some red and you're going to add some yellow. Now, one thing I found works best for this particular picture is that when you add your red, add it to shadows instead of midtones. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you add it to midtones, it tends to make the sky go purple. Because when you add red to blue, it goes purple. So click to shadows, add some red in there to warm it up a bit. And then you could add some yellow to shadows, but you could also switch to midtones for some of those yellows. But that's basically what you're doing here. You're still not going to be exact because we have one last thing to do, and that's we're going to suck some of the blue out of the picture, which is going to make it go more towards gray. So what you kind of want to avoid though is purple in the sky. So if you feel like it's kind of going a little purple, back off of it a bit. So once you have that one, you're ready to do the last one, which is hue saturation. And you're basically going to subtract out some blue. And so to do that, we're going to go in and we're going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer. And then we're not just going to drop saturation for all the colors. We're going to switch it from masters to blues. And then dropping the saturation, that's the middle slider, that's going to make the blues go more towards gray. And that's going to give you this washed out effect that we have, which is kind of the effect you get when a photograph fades. So its color is no longer as vibrant. And that's kind of what this is going for, that vintage, faded out photo look. And then once you have that, you know, it's the same thing. Save it, name it last name, first name, EX16. Be sure when you're saving on your desktop if you're grabbing it directly from the handout folder. And then you're ready to go on to the next one. So the next one is 17. And this is one that you guys get to do on your own. But I'll give you a hint and let you know that color balance is your friend on this. So what we're trying to do is to get this very pink picture looking a little more natural. You're using an adjustment layer. Color balance is a good one for it. It's one that this particular photo teacher doesn't really give any advice on. You just give it your best shot, see how you do for this one. But I think you guys can do it. It won't be too hard. It's an easy one. So finish that one, and then we'll continue on with the next one when you're ready. Okay, so we're ready to do exercise 18, and that's kind of fun. You get to change the VW bus into from being a blue bus to a red bus. There's a whole set of instructions for it that walks you through. This one does not use adjustment layers, so it's different than the others. All the other ones do. This one uses a feature called Replace Color. And so what you're going to do is go to Image, Adjustments, and you're going to choose the Replace Color option, which is towards the bottom. That's going to give you a window that lets you sample colors that you want to replace. And be sure that you're on Selection and not on Image. And then you can go in and you can use the eyedropper and click right on the blue to sample blue. So now the computer knows, hey, we're working with blue. And then if you need to add more shades of blue, you're going to click the plus eyedropper, which is officially called Add to Sample.
Where's that at?
Right here. And so you're going to add a little more. Now just kind of try not to grab too much on the side though, because it tends to want to take over the whole bus and the whole background too. Now if you go too far and you need to remove some, this will subtract from your selection. So say you've got, sky, you can get rid of some of it. It won't be perfect though. So, you're definitely going to probably have to do a little more to it to fix it, but I'll show you the way to fix it up. So basically, as long as you have most of the bus, the blue part of the bus looking white, you're in good shape. And then once you've got that, you can adjust the fuzziness slider a little bit, and that's going to control how many shades of blue it grabs. So if you go really high, it'll grab a lot. If you go low, it's going to grab less. So you can also kind of adjust it that way. I don't know why they call this fuzziness. I have no clue. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with fuzzy, but that's what they call it. So you can kind of adjust that around. Now to see what you're actually doing, we're going to change the hue from blue to red. And hue is just a fancy word for a color. So red is a hue, blue is a hue. So we're going to drag that over, and there's a nice red that's over on the right. And you can decide if you want it to be orangey red or more pinkish red or more blood red, whatever you want. Now if you still see some blue on the vehicle, you can click with the plus right on that blue, and you can get it to cover a little more solidly. So just kind of click around and hopefully you can get that. You can also adjust your slider just a little bit too, and that just took care of mine. Now the downfalls are when I get my bus looking good. Notice the sky has pink and the windows have some pink. So don't worry about it for now. I'm going to show you how to fix it after. It's pretty easy to fix, but we can't really fix it in this control and still get the bus selected nicely. So for now, just get your bus color changed and then say OK. And once you've got that, here's how you're going to get the pink out of the sky. You're going to use a brush that's called the History brush. It's right underneath the normal brushes. There's also Art History. That is not the one you want. You want this one. So choose it. And as you paint across your sky now, it's going to remove the effect you just did. So you can paint your sky back to being blue again. You can also paint those windows, which if yours is anything like mine, you now have some very reddish windows. So just paint over that until that reddish cast is gone. Okay, that's the history brush. That's only going to work if you haven't saved. So as soon as you save, that history would be gone, just like the normal history panel. So once you get it looking good, you erase all the pink from where it shouldn't be, then save it, File, Save As, EX18, last name, first name first, turn it in. So for this one, we have our exercise, and then we have the final, what we're trying to get our exercise to look like, and then there's a whole sheet of instructions in the exercise 15 through 20 folder for the instructions for that exercise. So as we look at them, we'll just kind of get a sense of what we're using. So we're using levels, and she actually kind of gives us a little detail this time that you're just moving those inward slightly. And then next we're using curves, and she shows you how to do that. I'll demo that in just a minute. And then finally hue saturation, and she even gives you the exact number for the master saturation. And then for the red selective color saturation, you just kind of do that one on your own. The final thing is not an adjustment layer, it's a filter, and it's in Sharpen. We'll show you how to use that. If you're ready to, you could probably figure it out on your own. She tells you the exact amounts, not exact, but the approximate amounts to use on that particular unsharp mask filter. Okay, so we're going to start out and we're going to use levels first. So I'm going to the adjustment layer icon, the black and white circle. I'm choosing levels. I'm making sure my adjustment panel's open. If it isn't open, remember you can go to Window to open it. And then I'm dragging in this slider up here, the one next to the little eyedroppers, I'm dragging the white in and I'm dragging the black in. And I'm trying to get the dark and light in the pictures to be pretty similar. And you know, just look in a few places and kind of get a sense of how close you are. I'm looking right now at the side of this barn, trying to get it even with this one. So that's the first step. The second one, we're doing curves, and curves is kind of a weird one, but it gives you a little grid. And continuing on with curves, you want to lock the point in the very center of the line, and you do that simply by taking your cursor and clicking right where the grid lines intersect in the center of the grid square. And then you're going to move the top portion 1/3 to 1/2 of an inch to the left. And you can kind of, you know, look at what you're doing as you do it, so you can kind of see. And then you'll move the bottom 1/3 to 1/2 of an inch. And it is also adjusting contrast. So that's the main thing that curves will do, although it will really change the color quite a lot if you pull that bar around a whole bunch. So after adding that curves, I find my levels are just a little bit heavy, so I'm actually going to go back to levels and I'm going to make them a little lighter. Because I found when I was looking at this grass, this wheat or whatever it is, looked a lot darker. So you just have to kind of keep eyeing it. And then the last one, last adjustment layer, is hue saturation. We're going to add 10%. We're going to make it brighter rather than less bright this time. We're going +10 on the master, which is going to make everything get brighter. And then we're going to open selective color, and we're just going to do red separately. So adjustment layer, and then hue saturation. And now for master +10, I'm just going to type that in. and then I'll switch to red. So I'm going to where it says master, changing that to say reds. And then I'll raise that up a little. And, you know, I'm going to try to hopefully get it looking similar to the original. So that's all of the adjustment layers. The last part is just the filter. And filters, all the filters are here in the menu bar under filter. And then we want sharpen and unsharp mask. And according to the instructions, we've got no more than 58 of amount, no more than 3 of radius, and 0 for threshold. So we really are mostly going to be probably adjusting just amount. So you can kind of adjust up or down and kind of see what's going to, you know, make the pictures look similar. And by sharpen, what it's going to do is it's going to hopefully make, you know, the little details just a touch sharper. Now you can't use a heavy sharpen, it tends to just make it look fake, but it can sharpen up a slightly blurry picture a little bit. So that's the last part of this. Say okay, save it, last name, first name, EX19. What I'm going to do with this next one is take our tiger, which is on a colored background, and we're going to make a sepia photo, which is kind of like an old school, you know, old photograph. We're going to do it using a solid color adjustment layer. So to do it, go to your exercise 20, make an adjustment layer, and choose solid color. From there, to do sepia, it's a brownish kind of color, and you can get some nice browns in the orangey, yellowy area. So I would choose orange. If you want a more red brown, then you want to go more towards orange. If you want a more yellow brown, then you want to go a little more towards yellow. So, you know, you can pick, and don't worry, you can change this at any point. You can alter your color. I'll show that too. So I've chosen my color. It's kind of ugly at the moment. Hopefully it'll look good across the photograph. Now to see my tiger underneath, I'm going to change the blending mode of the layer. And the blending mode is right here where it says normal in the layer panel. I want to change it to say color. So I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom where color is and choose it. And that gives me now that colored tiger. Now, right now I have kind of a greenish cast to it. I don't really like that. So I'm going to change it. To do that, I'm going to click on the little colored square in the color fill adjustment layer. I'll double click to get the color picker. And then I'm just going to drop the color down a little. I'm clicking into orange more to give it that more brown. And you can just kind of click around, you know, and get a more grayed out sepia tone or a brighter, more vivid. Whichever you like is fine. So it's an easy way to kind of get an old photo kind of look to your photograph. And that's all this exercise is. Once you have it, save it, last name, first name, EX20. And that's the end to this series of exercises.